Welcome to the Cinema Spotlight, hosted by James Sena, all things entertainment. Grab your popcorn and enjoy the show. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Cinema Spotlight. This is the show where we dissect all things movies, TV, and everything in between. I am your host and self-proclaimed media expert, James Sena. This holiday season has been a wee bit inconsistent, but we are back, and oh boy, there's a lot to do. As per usual, we're going to kick things off with a segment of the tried and true Oscar Watch, which at this time of the year is, this is the most relevant the Oscar Watch is ever going to be. And following that, I'm hitting you with a new segment called Television Terrarium. And it would be a tragedy if you didn't stay till the end, because I'm going to be updating everyone on award season implications. And let me tell you, there's a lot to go over. So strap in, because this episode of the Cinema Spotlight is about to begin. And of course, here's an official spoiler warning for any and all content discussed here today. And without further ado, let's shine a spotlight on Babylon.
Oscar Watch. Oscar Watch.
I remember early on in the year when a whole slate of new movies was coming out, and I was trying to figure out, like, okay, what are some movies to look out for when it comes to what's going to win some Oscars and stuff like that. Babylon, just right out the gates, is a fun title. And you look at the cast. You see Brad Pitt, you see Margot Robbie. You know, those are some big names, and there's plenty of cameos of other more known actors, I would say, in the movie. And, you know, going into this, I wasn't really sure what it was. And, like, here's the thing. I feel like for every review so far, I've been saying something along the lines of, oh, well, I went in blind. And this time, I mean, I tend to like to go into movies blind, but I like to at least get a general idea of what the plot is when I'm going in to watch it, because that way I'm like, okay, does it hit the mark? Does it miss the mark? Like, what are we talking about here? What are we looking at? Banshees of Inisherin is a good example of this. I went in not really knowing what to expect whatsoever, but I did know that it focused on the relationship between two friends, and I knew that it was in Ireland, and I knew that it was a dark comedy. So, like, I knew enough about the movie where the plot was still a surprise, but the movie itself and the enjoyment wasn't. It was a little bit easier to anticipate. Now, this movie, I'm going to put it out this way. I don't normally talk about the trailers to movies. The trailer was bad. Like, after having seen the movie, the trailer didn't really describe at all what the movie was about. And it didn't really get you excited for the movie. Once I saw the trailer, I was like, I'm going to skip it. And then I started seeing content creators online saying, okay, the trailer misleads you like crazy, because when you see this movie, it is insane. Not necessarily always in a good way, but it is quite nuts. So that was really all I had to go off of going into this movie. As you know, I always like to say what my thoughts were going in. I was expecting something loud and big, like a big blockbuster-esque type movie. But I had no idea what to expect for the plot aspect, because, I mean, honestly, even Googling it would not have prepared me for what I was about to experience. So we will get into Oscar stuff with this, because even before I saw the movie, I saw that there were some Oscar talks. Like, okay, this movie could actually do something at the Oscars, which I was like, interesting. This sounds like a good movie to talk about on my podcast. So, really quick, I normally do this after the summary, but this movie's directed by Damien Chazelle, who I'm actually not familiar with a lot of his work. So this was a new experience as a, first time watching this director. Margot Robbie plays Nellie Leroy, and I would say she's more or less the lead, but you could also say that Diego Calva playing Manny Torres is also the lead, and I think that would be more accurate, although there are essentially three different stories, with the third story, as you might have guessed based on what I mentioned earlier, Brad Pitt plays Jack Conrad, so he's in there as well. These are your three point of view characters. Now, I'm going to lightly spoil the summary. It's just the best way to get a full gist of the movie. But keep in mind, the best way to describe this movie, and this is sort of my general just take on what the movie's about. It's a portrayal of the very high highs and the very low lows of Hollywood. I feel like I saw someone describe it as that online, and I don't know who to give credit to, but after watching that movie, I think that is the best explanation that you could possibly give. So, the entire opening of the movie was just insanity. Right off the bat, it really leans into the rated R rating of this movie, and there's elephant just crapping literally all over someone. There's a huge party, and the music is super loud, and there's all kinds of nudity, drugs, alcohol, prostitution, just all kinds of just the absolute batshit crazy just scene that you would ever look at in terms of like what you might imagine a Hollywood party in the 20s would look like. That's what it was. And during this, you get introduced to your main characters. I'm not going to call her Margot Robbie. You're introduced to Nellie Leroy, who her actual real name in the story is Nellie Roy, but she's saying Nellie Leroy because she literally says it makes it sound like she's more of a star. And more about that in a second. But we meet Manny Torres. I always mix up the characters and the actors' names. We meet Manny Torres, who is a very hard worker, and he's just trying to make sure that the party goes okay. And then you have Jack Conrad, who is an esteemed actor in the business. So you have someone trying to get into the business, someone who is already esteemed and essentially an anchor of the business, and then someone who is trying to just be there, and that's Manny. And there's a whole conversation between Manny and Nellie, and there's obviously a romance there. And let's see here, what other... I'm going to try to stick to my notes the best I can so that I don't derail myself, because there is a lot to talk about when it comes to this movie. It's very easy to just fly off the handle and just talk about whatever. Let's see, that being said, once we meet the actors and the party scene sort of dies down, now you get the middle where you're starting to get into more of the high highs of, okay, Nellie has this mindset of, I want to be a star, and she goes into that, and she is who she is, and she's really trying to capitalize on that, not necessarily in like a money grabbing way. She just wants to be a star. And there's this whole sequence where Brad Pitt's character is like drunk on the set, but like they need to get the right shot but they broke all their cameras, and Manny's going, and they're like, oh, we need a camera right now. So Manny's like doing everything he can to make sure that they get a camera for the scene. And meanwhile, you have Nellie, who's just fine. Like normally in the quiet, like the silent films, the acting is okay, but she is amazing. And what does she display? She displays that she can cry on demand, which the director was like, whoa, that's crazy. From there on out, you're just watching these characters understand the world that they're in. You see them trying to get into the business or trying to change with the times, because now we're growing into, okay, there's silent films, and what was the beauty of that? Going into sound with films as well now. And then we meet another character. Jovan Adepo plays Sidney Palmer. I want to shout out Sidney Palmer, and I think there's another character in there that I want to bring mention to in just a second too, because they had a monologue that was just incredible. I'm trying not to, again, derail myself, because there's just so much. But Sidney Palmer is a musician that we also meet at the beginning, and his story isn't as heavily focused on, which is a little unfortunate, because I actually really loved what they were doing with his character. And I'm just going to go through this middle part here. But the last 30 minutes or so of the movie just explode into insanity and not in a good way. The party at the beginning is like, it's insanity in a way where everyone's just doing whatever they want, because it's 20s. It's the roaring 20s in Hollywood. The last 30 minutes shows the darkest sequence of events. Just not necessarily dark. I mean, dark. It is dark, but it's dark because it's so true, and it's so like you almost don't even want to think about it because it's so true and relatable. With the problems that come along with drinking, drug abuse, gambling, prostitution, depression, and death, which I wasn't expecting characters to die in the way that they were dying in this movie. And the way that they talk about suicide specifically, it's a very, very heavy topic. And in this movie, it is just, it's not necessarily done in a way where they're saying, don't do this. And that to me was like one issue, and not necessarily an issue that I had with the movie, but it was just like the way that they just showcased it. It was too realistic to me, where I cried so many times in this movie. I mean, and there was a mind-bending montage at the end, which you're not even ready for if you go and see this movie. So I want to just jump right into the Oscars really quick, because there's just so much to talk about with this movie. I could probably do a 20-minute segment, and I don't even know if that would be enough. But I'm going to try my best to stick to my 15 minutes here. I rated this movie at 7.5. And again, I think where this movie really succeeds, it succeeds in the acting, for sure. It succeeds in the ideas, for sure. It succeeds with the music, which I'll talk about later. All the colors, the action. Where it falls for me a little bit is, I think, the choice on which plot threads to follow. And I think that there are really beautiful elements in this movie, specifically with Brad Pitt's character, that I really, really like. I really love what they did with Nellie Leroy. My issue with some of the stuff with her character is that I feel like there was so much of her character that was spoken rather than shown. And that, to me, was a little bit unfortunate, because I think that Margot Robbie was absolutely smashing it in this movie, and what we got from her was amazing. But I think that the real things that we needed to see, especially in reference to like the last 30 minutes where it really becomes relevant, I feel like it was a little bit not misguided, but there was something that could have been handled slightly better with her character. Also with Manny's character was very good, but I was a little bit confused at the very end. And even when the movie was ending, I wasn't sure, because they were like, oh, you're never allowed to be in California again. And then at the end of the movie, he's back in California. And it's like, okay, well, didn't they just say that you weren't allowed to be there? But anyways, that's besides the point. Another just really quick point, because I'm just skimming my notes before we have to rush through the Oscar. I'll make it a little bit of a longer segment, actually. I think it's worth the conversation. But Tobey Maguire, I was thinking Tom Holland. Tobey Maguire is barely in this movie. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, because he plays his cameo very, very well. But what they should have done was just stick it to a cameo. What they do, they showed him in the trailer, and everyone's in the movie thinking, oh, well, Tobey Maguire's in this movie. He's in the movie for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I wasn't counting, but it was definitely, I was keeping track of it, because I was like, okay, well, where is he? Because 2.5 hours had passed, and he wasn't even there yet. And then his character is not even that integral to the story at all. I was confused why they showed that in the trailer. So I think that the marketing for this movie just really failed. I think they wanted to pull people in because they see Tobey Maguire, but is he really that big of a pull? I think it would have been better if he was just a cameo. I think that would have been better, but anyways, I digress. That's my go-to, is I digress. Another monologue that I really want to mention, and I don't... Oh, here we go. There's one specific monologue from Eleanor St. John, that's the character, played by Jean Smart, about how Hollywood is a machine, and everyone is simply everyone in it... I'm reading this from my notes here. Everyone in it is simply a cog that will be replaced once it's broken or not needed anymore. A monologue that for the rest of the night genuinely broke me, and it really did, because it really puts it into perspective on how brutal entertainment is. And it's just another reason why I'm very grateful to be able to do this podcast, and for people to listen, because it's entertainment, and it doesn't it costs me just a little bit of my time, and the idea is for it to be a method of enjoyment for people. And Jean Smart's monologue there, I think she did absolutely just magically. And it really just, there was another moment where I definitely cried, because it just really put things into perspective, especially with what ends up happening to Brad Pitt's character. It's just so tragic. Okay, now with that lip smack out of the way, let's talk about the Oscars. Now, this movie is going to get a lot of nominations. I'm going to say that right now. But And later in the episode, we're going to be talking about the Golden Globes and the Critics' Choice Awards. And I'm sure I'll probably talk about Babylon a little bit there too. But I just want to shout out some categories that it's either already been nominated for at other award shows, or there's actually one that I genuinely think was a lock at the Oscars, and then they ended up winning at I believe the Critics' Choice, which just goes to show, or sorry, Golden Globes. At the Golden Globes, they did win one there, and I'll talk about that in just a second. So Best Actress, Margot Robbie definitely deserves a nomination. She hasn't won anything from that category yet, and I don't think she will. I think pretty universally it has been going to not Kate Winslet. Kate wow, I'm completely blanking. Blanchett, or no, I don't know where. I'll have to look at it when we get to that segment. That being said, I don't see Margot Robbie actually taking home a win here. Best Picture, Babylon's been nominated for Best Picture at actually most award show, but again, I don't think it's gonna win. I think it's the type of movie that absolutely gets a nomination, sort of like Don't Look Up got a nomination last year, and it's one of those movies where it's like it's a big movie and it really tries to have a certain message, but it just falls a little bit short of what it's aiming for. Best Director, Damien Chazelle. I think he should definitely get a nomination here with just what he was able to create. But again, I just don't think he'll win. I just don't think so. I think that honestly, I think Spielberg has it in the bag this year. And I think Martin McDonagh, who did Banshees of Inisherin, he's the other one that's like up there for an award potentially. So we might see that happen. But we'll see. We'll see. But I think a nomination feels deserved. So I'll say that. And there's a lot of costume and makeup and set design categories that Babylon could absolutely be nominated for. But I'm going to go ahead and just say, like, I don't know enough to speak on those categories while watching a movie to know if that should, I don't know if it's deserving of those wins because I don't know enough about makeup or enough about costume design and set design and stuff like that. The set design looked cool, but it also wasn't anything super crazy. There was just a lot going on. This movie is just, if I had to sum up this movie in just a brief sentence, it would say there's a lot going on. But there is an award I genuinely think that this movie should win, and that is Best Original Score. I think this movie is absolutely ridiculous in terms of there was a song playing during the party scene at the beginning, and it just feels iconic. It just feels that way to me. And when you heard the music playing at the end of the movie, that is usually the surefire sign to know if a score is iconic, where when you hear it, you know exactly what it's from, you know exactly what it's trying to say, you know exactly what it means. And this movie definitely has a song at the beginning and just throughout. And I had this thought immediately leaving the theater, but it won the Golden Globe for Best Original Score. So if we see this movie nominated for an Oscar, which I believe the nominations for all Oscar awards come out on the 24th, or those that probably released on Twitter or something like that, which maybe is something that we'll focus on in the following episode. But yeah, I feel like if it's nominated, it's got a huge chance. If I wouldn't say a guarantee, because nothing's ever a guarantee, but I think it could win. I think it genuinely has a very good chance at winning as long as it's nominated, which I don't see why it wouldn't be. But yeah, I mean, there's so much more I could talk about when it comes to this movie. I just want to quickly shout out one specific scene, which is probably my favorite scene of the whole movie, where there's a scene where they're like filming something, and they need to get the scene right, but it's like super hot, and they can't have the fan going because it makes noise and it screws up the new audio systems that they had in like the 30s. And they've done the scene every single time, and every single time there's one little aspect that goes wrong, and they finally get the scene right, and then at the very end they see it's just okay. I'll let you watch the movie because it's just ridiculous, but it just reminded me of college, where we would be doing a scene and then something would happen, like someone would start swearing in the background of the scene or something. It just really brought me back to good memories of just making films and stuff like that, and just knowing what happens behind the scenes that people don't get to see, like the people that don't work with film and everything. it's just funny coming from a creator and knowing what happens in the background. But if you want to hear more about how the Oscars are looking, make sure to stick around until the end of the show. But before that, we'll take a quick cut. What movies would you like to see me talk about on the Oscar Watch? If you're listening on Spotify, head over to YouTube and let me know in the comments below, and I will cue that movie up for a future episode. Now, let's get back to the show. So last episode, I did a segment where I discussed reality TV, and I went on a little tirade about how I would do if I was on Big Brother and da-da-da-da, but I think I missed the whole point of that because the whole inspiration for that segment came because I was sitting here in my chair thinking, oh, well, I claim to talk about all things entertainment, but I'm only doing movies. So I jumped to reality TV, and then I realized, I haven't actually done any segments, I believe, about just regular television. So we're going to fix that today in a segment I'm calling Television Terrarium. And, recently I've been binging a lot of TV shows. And just some rules before when we go in, because I'm going to give you my recommendations based on things that I've seen. I'm going to divvy those up into a couple categories, but then I'm also going to talk about movies that I haven't seen yet that I want to watch in the future. And I guess this is sort of an invitation to throw movie, yes, but TV show recommendations as well into the comments and stuff like that. Because there's just so many shows out there too. So like that's another thing. If I don't mention a specific iconic show, and you're like, what? Like, how the heck haven't you seen that show? You haven't seen that? No, probably not. If I'm sorry if that upsets you that I haven't gotten around to watching a certain show, but there's a lot of content out there, so it can be difficult to watch certain things, especially because like I don't actually have HBO Max, for example, or like I don't have certain subscriptions. So we're working with what we got, but I figured, you know what? Let's do a segment on television shows. And I'm also going to stay away from animated shows and specifically anime because I am a fan of anime, but that feels like its own thing. Like that's its own branch of media, in my opinion. So without further ado, let's just jump right in to the first category that I'm deeming the big ones, which is just shows that are really popular, and you've probably heard of them, even if you haven't seen them. So here's a couple shows that I've seen all or most of. Game of Thrones, The Walking Dead, Breaking Bad, Lost. These are the four, I would say the four big ones. Now, in the realm of this is where some people would say, like, you're not mentioning The Sopranos? You're not mentioning The Wire? I just kind of talked about why I'm not mentioning those, but let's talk about these four. Game of Thrones, some people like to kind of crap on the later seasons, and I understand. I get it. I get it that people are upset that it's not super accurate to the books, and it's they kind of strayed away from how the earlier seasons tended to operate, and I get that. I get that that's a genuine critique. However, I would be remiss if, even the worst episodes of Game of Thrones are pretty entertaining, in the later seasons especially, just with the pure spectacle of explosions and the fighting. The war scenes is just up there. It really gives off a Lord of the Rings vibe, and I know I'm going to piss people off because people love to just gatekeep Middle Earth and stuff like that and say like, oh, well, nothing compares. Game of Thrones is nothing compared to Lord of the Rings. And, well, the Lord of the Rings is something I need to get into so that I can jump on that side of the field, I guess. But the earlier seasons of Game of Thrones is phenomenal. I think for me, a favorite episode, I would say, is the one... is it Watchers on the Wall? I think it's Watchers on the Wall is like very good. Heart Home is very good. I don't know if this means anything to anyone, but if you haven't seen Game of Thrones, check it out. The earlier seasons especially is peak television. The Walking Dead, another show that sort of fell off towards the end, but in the range of seasons 3 to 6, very, very, very entertaining television if you are into the horror genre. It covers the zombie apocalypse. I mean, what more do you want? They made some choices later in the seasons that I'm not gonna go into too deep here, but I actually do own a lot of the comic books for that. So I've been trying to compare them side by side as they've been going. I did take a little bit of a break, but I mean, The Walking Dead is very entertaining, super character driven, despite also having zombies there. So, I mean, I think it is very good, and it's written by Robert Kirkman, the same person that did Invincible, if you've seen that on HBO Max. So, if you haven't seen The Walking Dead and you're curious, I would definitely recommend picking it up, and it's a long series, so strap in for that. But otherwise, I mean, I do think it is, at least the earlier seasons are worth your time for sure. Breaking Bad, I mean, what isn't there to say about Breaking Bad? I mean, a show that, I mean, the first season is great, don't get me wrong, but the show every single season finds a way to get better and better and better and better and better. And towards the end, it's just the best season of television I think I've ever watched. I can very confidently say that Breaking Bad is my favorite show I've ever seen ever. It is that good. It definitely, if you've heard the hype, the show lives up to the hype. I promise you. I think Walter White might genuinely be my favorite fictional character of all time. I mean, it's if not number one, he's up there. He's definitely up there. And well, people that know me know that I can talk forever about Breaking Bad, so I'm gonna try to just cut it there. But if you're even remotely curious about what it's about and everything like that, definitely just jump right in. Don't look up anything. Just jump right in. You will not regret it. And then Lost is another one that I hate to say it. Was another one that fell off towards the end. But the earlier seasons, like seasons 1, 2, 3, like those are actually very, very, very good. And the mystery, the way that they play with flashbacks, Lost is a very good series. And maybe if I had more patience and more like consistent like watching schedule at the time that I had picked it up, maybe I would have finished it, to be honest with you. But towards the end, it really felt like they were waffling. I feel like you could have easily ended the show after season 3, but if I'm remembering correctly, I think network executives were like, no, this is making us a lot of money. It's the number one show on television right now. We got to keep cranking out more seasons. So, well, that's what happens when you crank out more content than there should be. Sometimes you just need to leave a show to be a couple seasons as long as it's one good product, because you're gonna make more on the there's a word for it. I don't know enough about like marketing and how that works, but you're gonna have a lot of profit just rolling in, just the more people go back and watch it. Because if it's a 3-season project, then by the time the 3 seasons are over, people are going to be talking about it nonstop. And then if you want more content, wait a couple years, do a reboot. That's what every damn show in existence does, and it pays off. I feel like Lost should have done that, but it was ahead of its time. So I digress. So okay, the next category here, I'm gonna call, like, I regard them highly, but they are still relatively new. So if you're looking for something that's more recent that's come out, maybe you're trying to stay hip with the kids and like whatever. I'm sorry, I will never do that again. But if you're trying to stick with it and trying to go with what everyone is watching, then well, yeah, I mean, these are the shows. I mean, what better to start out with than Better Call Saul? I mean, if you've seen Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul is a show that realistically could stand on its own. And I think it does stand on its own, although it's so much better once you've seen Breaking Bad. So for what it's worth, watch Breaking Bad first. You should be doing that anyways, but watch Breaking Bad first, then watch Better Call Saul. You will not regret it. I'm telling you. Some people are saying Better Call Saul is better than Breaking Bad. Don't know if I would say that myself, though I haven't seen the last season, so I have to go back and do that. I'm waiting for it to drop on Netflix, so don't clown on me for that. I'm still waiting. But how could I have a TV list without mentioning Stranger Things? It is the phenom show of Netflix. It is the cash cow. It is the new hot thing on streaming platforms. Stranger Things. It's a show, I believe it's set in the 80s. it's worth checking out. If you've never seen it or never heard of it, definitely just jump right in. It is worth your time. At least watch the first season. If it's not really your thing after the first season, then that's, not all these shows are going to be for you, but these are the types of shows that I would personally recommend. Let's go with a new thing, too, that's been getting a lot of attention, and rightly so. That's The Bear. The Bear, if you haven't seen it, it is an 8-episode, well, I don't know if it's getting a season 2 or not, but this year, it's an 8-episode series, mostly sitcom length episodes, so like 25 minutes to 30 minutes episodes, with, I think the finale is longer, but it is just so good. It is super raw, but it's also, like, so it's very emotional, but there's a lot of comedy thrown in, and the cast does a very good job with it. The setting is very well done. It's very tight knit. So everything about the show just it accomplishes exactly what it's going for. So if you're into that sort of thing, definitely check out The Bear. I definitely recommend it. And the last show I'm gonna I'll recommend it. I don't know if it's for everyone, but I enjoyed it. If you care about that, Only Murders in the Building. It is a Hulu original. It has Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Selena Gomez in there, and they basically it's like a true crime. I think it's a show about I know it's a show about people who are fan of true crime podcasts, and then they stumble themselves into a murder mystery and they solve it while do a podcast on it. It's actually fun. It's a very fun concept for a show. It's meant to be like a not a sitcom per se, but it's meant to be very comedic. There are some funny moments. I think that Martin Short definitely shines. Some of the funny moments feel a little forced, but there's a lot of emotional moments as well if you're into that, as it's not just pure comedy. And I actually really love what they do with their story structure and how they structure the timelines. They focus on certain characters, and it's I personally really enjoyed it, and I really love Martin Short and Steve Martin specifically. Selena Gomez is great too, but those two specifically, I haven't seen them in stuff recently, so it was really just a treat to be able to watch them and observe like their comedy style and everything. But on that note, I want to just throw some shade on shows really quick. Shows that I just because you gotta. I've seen season 1 of the Umbrella Academy. I've seen it and I didn't like it, so I'm not gonna go out there and say don't watch that show. Season 1 was fine. It just didn't keep me hooked enough to go back for season 2. But that being said, another big one, because I was going through a list of just like the most popular shows of all time, and the 100 popped up, and I did get through like the first few seasons of the 100, and that's another show that just really fell off for me. It had Lost vibes in terms of like the story felt very good and very interesting, very new, creative, innovative the first few seasons, and then it just felt like they were running out of ideas, and then it just got really clunky. They started killing off people when they really didn't need to. They started introducing characters where I'm like, okay, is this character important or not? I don't know. And it fell off. I think I would realistically put Lost in this category. However, I think that for how iconic Lost is, for especially at the time that it was, I think that if Lost was made in the modern day, I think Lost would actually be incredibly successful. And I stand by that. And I will continue to stand by that. Now, here's a few shows that I haven't seen yet. Last category. Sitcoms. I'm going to fire off some sitcoms that I've seen and that I think that you might enjoy. We got The Office, Parks and Rec, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Community. Those are my top 4. And I'll throw New Girl in there too at number 5. But those shows, they're sitcoms, but they don't have a laugh track, which interestingly actually feels like is a system I've learned to enjoy more than sitcoms with a laugh track. So that would include something like Friends. Okay, I've seen Friends. I think that's the only show like that I've seen. I enjoyed it, but definitely not as much as the other form of sitcom. Yeah, and I mean, another one that I really want to dive into is Modern Family. My brother showed me a couple episodes of that one, so that looks like it'd be pretty good. So yeah, so those are definitely some shows that I recommend. I mean, if you're curious what the next thing for me that I'm going to try to watch, I really want to try to watch Queen's Gambit. I know it's been out for a while. I just never got around to seeing it, but it's a short Netflix show. I want to go and try to watch that. And I definitely want to dive into Ozark and Peaky Blinders as well. And I've heard that Mindhunter is also really good on Netflix, but it wasn't finished. I think it was canceled, but it was made by David Fincher, so I have to watch it. I love David Fincher. He's a homie. But yeah, I mean, obviously that is a lot of content to digest. But what shows did I miss? Go ahead and let me know in the comments as we go ahead and take a quick break. If you are enjoying the show so far, remember to check out the Cinema Spotlight Spotify playlist and subscribe to keep up with future episodes. Now, let's get back to the show. The Golden Globes and Critics' Choice Awards just happened this past week or week and a half. However, the recurring segment on my show revolves around one specific award show, the Oscars, or the Academy Awards as they're also called. I've been trying to correctly predict not only what will win these awards, but what might even get nominated at all. For reference, I'm writing and recording this episode. Well, not writing. I'm recording this episode on January 19th. The voting just closed, I think, a day or so ago, and the nominations for the Oscars will officially be released on January 24th. How? I'm not actually, probably just some news outlet, so I'll probably cover that on the next episode. So, we have a lot we have a lot of work to do, don't we? So for today, I want to strictly talk about how the Golden Globes and the Critics' Choice Awards are going to impact what the eventual results might look like at the Oscars. So not just nominations, but who's going to win that. For future episodes, we can do deeper dives in future episodes on what is going to win specific categories. But I for now, I just want to I'm just going to casually look at the winners of the previous awards. Just kind of riff a little bit on just what I think of these awards and what may have been a surprise and what I think was expecting and how it might, what's the relevancy of some of these awards. So with that being said, let's just go ahead and jump right in without further ado, anyways, I don't know. Without further ado, who started that phrase? It's a weird phrase. never thought about that actually. But yeah, the Golden Globes started on January 10th. Or not started. They occurred on January 10th. So I'm just gonna click over here to the Golden Globes, and we're just gonna browse through these categories. Maybe some of the things that I thought it's interesting that they were nominated and just what wins here. So I'm looking at the Golden Globes right now for 2023, and it's kind of weird that it's not 2022 and it's 2023. For the awards, even though all those movies took place in 2022. I don't know. I was thinking about that while I was writing. But the winner for Best Motion Picture Drama, specifically, was The Fabelmans, which I haven't seen yet. So, if that movie wins the Oscars, I'm doing this show a disservice because a movie will have won that I haven't seen and I haven't talked about. So I need to, that's definitely one that I feel like I need to watch and review for you before the Oscars happen. Some of the other nominations there were Avatar: The Way of Water, which I haven't seen, Elvis that I haven't seen, Tar that I haven't seen, and Top Gun: Maverick, which I haven't seen. So remember when I was saying I have a lot of work cut out for me? Yeah, okay, that's what I mean. I haven't seen some of these. And that's normally the issue with the Oscars and with a lot of these award shows is I've seen a good chunk of movies this year. Like, it's not like I've been slouching. Like, I've seen a good amount of new releases from this year, but it doesn't feel like it matters because a lot of the movies in these categories I haven't actually seen yet. That being said, Best Motion Picture, Musical or Comedy, okay, alright. Winner for that was Banshees of Inisherin, which, hello, I've been saying that. I've been saying that. Banshees of Inisherin, don't sleep on that movie. It's one of my new favorites, I'm telling you. And if it wins Best Picture, which I think it has a shot, because here's the thing, when I was doing my earlier episode, like months ago in November, I said, oh, well, this might not win because it's going to lose to Everything Everywhere All at Once. That's another movie I haven't seen, but everyone's talking about how many awards it's winning. But Banshees of Inisherin got the Golden Globe and beat it, which is kind of crazy to think about because it's like, okay, well, everyone thought it was going to go to that movie, but now it's going to Banshees. Or it could go to Banshees. And now Banshees is in the running for that, and so would Fabelmans now. So the Best Picture is cracked wide open as a result of this, in my opinion. Because we got Banshees and Fabelmans both picking up a Best Picture win not the movie that everyone thought was going to win. Although we're gonna take we're gonna do the Cha Cha real smooth, and which is also I think a movie that came out this year. But we're gonna talk about Everything Everywhere All at Once at some point on this channel. I promise I will watch it. It's on Amazon, so I'll have to, you know, if anyone wants to send me $15 so I can watch that, sounds good to me. But also was nominated here was Babylon, which I've seen, and was talking about how it got a nomination. Glass Onion, Knives Out Mystery, which was a good movie. I don't know if it needed a nomination, but And then Triangle of Sadness, which I haven't seen, but it was a movie that I was looking forward to watching. I don't know if it actually ended up being any good. It was one of those movies that everyone before it came out was like, "Oh, this is a movie that is turning heads. Like people are gonna go crazy about it," and then it just kind of like disappeared into irrelevancy. Best television series drama. Do I really care? Should I focus on movie categories? Yeah, I'll focus on movie categories. If you're curious, House of Dragon won. If you want to look at like shorts and documentaries and television series and stuff like that, you can go ahead and check that out on your own. Yeah, because we're just gonna focus on what is relevant to the Oscars, and that'll save me some time too. Because we gotta make sure that this episode is less than an hour. Woo! Because otherwise, no one's gonna listen to the whole thing. Feel free to skip around if you want. But anyways, I'm just derailing myself here. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio won Best Picture, and Best Motion Picture Animated, which I haven't seen. I actually haven't seen. Oh no, okay. I've seen Turning Red. That was a Pixar movie. Marcel with the Shell with Shoes On. I haven't seen. Puss in Boots. I haven't seen, which I heard was actually surprisingly good. And then there's a movie called Inuo, which I haven't heard of. But it might be it sounds like it would be like an anime type movie. I'm trying to remember the guy that does. I mean, it could be Studio Ghibli, but I don't think Studio Ghibli. I think they're coming out with the movie next year. I don't think that that's one of it. So I'm just not familiar with that movie, I guess. Best Motion Picture Non-English Language. The winner for that was Argentina 1985, which is interesting because I've heard a lot of good things about All Quiet on the Western Front, which is on Netflix, and I've heard a lot of good things about Decision to Leave. I've heard that RRR might be Bollywood. I don't know for sure, but I think it's Bollywood. And then there's another one called Close, which I've actually never heard of. But I mean, Argentina. If any of these movies, like I've heard Decision to Leave is very good, so we'll see if that ends up. None of these movies usually win Best Picture, but I mean, didn't Parasite literally win a year ago or 2 years ago or something? I mean, you never know. Best television series, we'll skip that. Television series, limited television series. Best director, Steven Spielberg won it for The Fabelmans at the Golden Globes. I anticipate that he might win it again, but Martin McDonagh from Banshees, Baz Luhrmann from did Elvis. He got nominated. Daniel Kwan, or the Daniels from Everything Everywhere All at Once, and then James Cameron for Avatar got nominated, which, I think Spielberg deserves it. I think McDonagh also would deserve it, and I think he may have won. We'll see with the Critics' Choice actually. Best screenplay for a motion picture was Banshees of Inisherin. That one again. I called it that might be in the running for that. Cate Blanchett. It was Cate Blanchett. Okay, I for Tar. I thought I knew her name. Yeah, she won best actress in a drama, and yeah, makes sense. I mean, it makes complete sense to me. She's been absolutely sweeping the awards with her performance, so I think she probably is a shoo-in for the Oscar. I haven't seen Tar though, so I should probably see it. That being said, Austin Butler ended up winning Best Performance by an Actor in a Motion Picture. Now this is probably the biggest conversation we can have when it comes to Oscar implications, because I think people were like, oh, he was so good, he's gonna get nominated, but no one actually thought he was gonna win. I don't think. I genuinely stand by. I don't think anyone thought Austin Butler was actually going to win. I think everyone thought Brendan Fraser was going to win. And Austin Butler beat out Brendan Fraser for Best Actor in a Motion Picture Drama. Other nominations included Hugh Jackman in The Sun, Jeremy Pope for The Inspection, and I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Bill Nye, or is it? It's not. It's not Bill Nye the Science Guy, but it's Nighy. Bill Nye. I don't know. Pronunciation is crazy. Best performance in an actor. Best performance by actress in a musical or comedy. Michelle Yeoh from Everything Everywhere All at Once. Makes sense. Did beat out Margot Robbie for Babylon though. So, yeah. Cool. Colin Farrell. Here's the thing, and here's why the best actor category is so interesting. And the only reason why I'm not talking about this for best actress is because, again, Cate Blanchett might actually just have it locked down. The best actor is wide open because Colin Farrell won for Banshees of Inisherin for musical comedy. Austin Butler won for drama. And then we'll skip to the Critics' Choice Awards in just a second here because I think we're almost done. Okay. Best performance by an actress in a supporting role in any motion picture. And then Angela Bassett actually won that for Black Panther. And I think she won the Critics' Choice Awards too. So Angela Bassett might have locked up Best Supporting Actress. And then Cate Blanchett might have actually locked up Best Actress, Leading Actress. So the actress category might actually just be straight up locked up. Or, yeah, it might have got locked up, which is, I mean, deserved. They definitely deserve it, but it's not about deserving it. I think it's just the show becomes a little bit more predictable with that. But who knows? Maybe they won't win the Oscar. Who knows? I don't know how to pronounce his name. Ke Huy Quan or Ke Huy Quan. I should know how to pronounce this. I feel so bad that I don't know how to pronounce that. I should have looked that up beforehand. That's not very professional. I'm sorry. But Ke Huy Quan from Everything Everywhere All at Once, he has been locking up the supporting role Oscar or awards. So with that, I think we can expect him to win the Oscar. It's not locked in though by any stretch of the imagination. I think Brad Pitt for Babylon genuinely has a good shot. I didn't mention that, but I think he was nominated for this. I think he's got a shot. I think Brendan Gleeson's got a shot for Banshees of Inisherin. I think that it's not as locked up, but Ke Huy Quan has been winning basically everything, so we'll see how that goes. Best original score at the Golden Globes was Justin Hurwitz for Babylon. Yep. Best original song in a motion picture was Natu Natu from RRR. Cool. I mean, and that's the awards that are going to impact from the Golden Globes. And then as far as Critics' Choice Awards, I mean, here we go. At the best picture at Critics' Choice was Everything Everywhere All at Once. So that one's definitely wide open here. Because before Banshees won, and then I believe The Fabelmans won, but Everything Everywhere All at Once beat them out for best picture at the Critics' Choice. So I think we're looking at one of those three to win, but who knows? Who knows what's going to happen with that? Cate Blanchett's just knocking that out of the park. Brendan Fraser won for The Whale for Best Actor, so we're really seeing how open that field is there. Best Director here were the Daniels from Everything Everywhere All at Once. In the other one, it was Spielberg. So could be Spielberg for Best Director. Could be the Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert. The Daniels, easier to say. Let's see, Best Limited Series. I wish they organized these better for my podcast. Best Young Actor, I don't know if that's I don't think that's a category at the Oscars actually, but Gabriel Labelle from The Fabelmans won that. So, but here we go. Best Comedy, Glass Onion won an Oscar there. Best Acting Ensemble, Glass Onion again. Didn't expect that movie to win awards actually. I did see that. I didn't do an episode on it, but I did see that. I'm just kind of scrolling through here to see like what else is worth really diving into. Best Visual Effects, Avatar: Way of Water. That's pretty realistic. I think that there is a category with that in the Oscars, and I do think that Avatar will probably win that, if not Black Panther, which I actually haven't seen yet, but I do plan on watching that. I don't know if I'll cover it, but I do plan on watching it. Elvis won for Best Hair and Makeup. Again, it's hard for me to comment on that. Best Editing. I'm curious. Okay, The Menu actually didn't get a nomination for in the Critics' Choice Award, which is interesting because I said that the menu could get a nomination for Best Editing, and it didn't. So, well, you don't win them all. Best Production Design, Babylon. Best Cinematography, Top Gun Maverick, which I think is interesting considering that Banshees didn't even get a nomination there. That's crazy. Limited series or movie made for television. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's basically it. It looks like Natu Natu from RRR is going to win the best song, because that is an Oscar, so it's worth talking about at the very least. Best score? Unfortunately here, best score went to Tar. It beat out Babylon here. I'm really pulling for Babylon to win best score. However, I gotta go check out Tar, I guess. I gotta watch it. Best original screenplay, Everything Everywhere All at Once beats out Banshees. I think the Banshees were blessed a lot more at the Golden Globes, it looks like. And it looks like Critics' Choice Award, those judges were really just fans of Everything Everywhere All at Once. Because that movie is just sweeping everything. They got Best Supporting Actor, Best Supporting Actress, I think. Like everything. Screenplay, everything like that. Anything else here to check out before we wrap up the episode? It doesn't look like it. But yeah, I mean, just to sum it up, my thoughts here are that the actress, supporting and leading, are both seem locked up. Director is pretty open, but it's probably going to be between Spielberg, the Daniels. I'm gonna throw in Martin McDonagh. I still stand by the fact that his directing in that movie was phenomenal. So I stand by that. The actors, wide open. Lead actor specifically is wide open. That'll be a fist fight to see who wins that one. I don't think any of those guys are gonna actually fight each other. But supporting actor, Ke Quan is probably the favorite right now, but it's not. I wouldn't say it's locked in, although he is definitely the favorite. And Best Picture is gonna be a huge fight as well. I would personally say Everything Everywhere All at Once will, just based on the chatter that it's gotten, has the best chance. But I really am pushing for Banshees. I really, really love that movie. And if you haven't seen that one, definitely go check that out. But after all that, with the time we have left, just kidding. That's my thoughts. I mean, awards season is very busy, so I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts on nominations and who you think is going to win, and what's your favorite movie of the year? Definitely let me know in the comments below if you're on YouTube, and I think there's a little discussion tab on Spotify as well if you want to include it there. Once these events take place, don't worry about this podcast. It's actually a very exciting time for the podcast. That just means preparation begins for next year, and Cinema Spotlight Season 2 will officially be underway. And it technically has been underway, but we're focusing on the 2023 Oscars right now. Once that's up, we're going to go back and we're going to start looking at movies that came out in January and February, and we'll stay on top of it, and I'm going to try to be a lot more consistent with that this year. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and send it on to our outro. I want to thank everyone for listening to the Cinema Spotlight. If you enjoyed, please leave a like on the video and give the show a rating on Spotify. And if you could take a moment to subscribe to the show, I would really appreciate it. Follow me on Instagram at SenaJames35 for updates on when new episodes get released. If you want to let me know what movies to check out, head over to YouTube and drop a comment or two. That's all I got. Stay classy, friends.